Hey everyone! So you asked me to do some comparison videos and I told you I was working on them. First was to compare Derwent Coloursoft to Derwent Chromaflow, and then to compare the mix and match between Prismacolor and then compare all three at the end. So we're starting off the whole series and I'm ready to go, and we are starting with comparing Coloursoft to it's a lot bigger Chromaflow. I am going to go over everything from pros and cons, pricing. I will show you pages that I have colored with the two recently, and then we will keep going through the comparison series. So after this one, I'll be comparing the Chromaflow to the Prismacolor, Coloursoft to the Prismacolor, mix and match. Goodness gracious, it's going to take a while, but then all three will eventually make it into a video. So yeah, this is going to be a fun little series. Let me know in the comments below any other pencils you'd love to see me compare. It does take time, but I do eventually get to it. Eventually. And hopefully when the kids are back in school, it'll go faster. But for now, here we are. So let's see what we got. First things first. To compare, we must introduce. Welcome to Derwent Chromaflow. This is the 150 count set. I had gotten them back when they had their 36 count set, and then I had gotten them when they had the 72 count set. Then I went and got the 150 set. Now, if you watch my channel a lot, you probably know I'm not a fan of these. And there's a few reasons, and we'll get into that. But today we are comparing them against Coloursoft, another product from Derwent. So here's the Chromaflow. I do have a few missing. I'm using them in another test project, but here it is. So it still has the signature black barrel color dipped in and gold little thingamajig there. And with all Derwent products, it'll either say made in England or Britain, and where it's placed varies, but it has a color name and number as well. Now, these are a lot thinner than traditional Derwent pencils. So if you're a Derwent person like myself, you will have definitely noticed that there is a rather large difference between the pencils in diameter. These are very narrow, very light too. You'll notice that as well. You're like, gosh, these are pretty lightweight compared to others. But 150 colors. Now, this is one of those color family charts. Color with Claire made them, but I've been told you might not be able to snag them anymore, so no guarantees with that. I'll try to find a link for it if she does have them. So, as you can see, this is the 150 colors, all in color family order. They do have a ton of blues, purples actually, and then yellows galore. Good selection of greens. They tried to do some like warm and French gray styles to, kind of compete with Prisma. Now, I'm not going to say Derwent created this pencil specifically to compete with Prisma, because they don't say that, but we all probably can guess that, right? Okay, so that said, as a avid Prisma gal who uses Prisma more than any other pencil, I can tell you right now, these do not work like Prismas. They don't have the same opacity. They are not as creamy and buttery and just easy to blend and smoosh together. They are still soft. They blend decently, but you'll get more dust with these, I've noticed, and they just don't have that same feel as the Prisma. But if you live in the UK, these are obviously way more cheaper for you to get than getting your hands on Prismacolor, whereas us in the US, these aren't as cheap, though that has changed. These aren't as cheap, while Prismacolor are, so that's another thing to keep in mind. But we're not comparing them to Prisma today, we're comparing them to the Coloursoft, which are the other pencil that were similar-ish to Prisma. Again, Derwent never said they were making them to compete, it's just kind of assumed, right? Okay. Everyone wants to beat Prisma. Now, this one thing I want to point out is the color range. There are a lot of colors that are very close to one another in this 150 count set. So that is something to keep in mind. I mean, down here below, look at this. Very close to one another. Even these greens barely change We've got way too many blues that are so close to one another as well. Same thing over here. See that? And then when we get to the yellows, they have a lot of yellows. I mean, this whole line here is just a very slight alteration. So that was my big thing when this 150 count set came out. I was like, good grief. Because anytime I get a set of pencils, the first thing I do is compare the palette to a Prisma palette. And Prisma has one of the most well-balanced palettes, in my opinion. In my opinion. Don't rush to the comments and say otherwise. This is just a gal's opinion. But that said, it's still a decent set. It's just I wish they kind of put a little bit more thought into their color range. A lot of these could have been replaced with something different. So that is the Chromaflow, which we will be comparing. Now, the Coloursoft. These, the biggest set you can get is 72 count. You can get them in a wooden box for collectors, but there's really no point because it's still 72 count only. The only set from Derwent that comes in a wooden box that's worth it to me is the Artists, because that's the only way to get your hands on the 100 set, unless you want to buy them open stock. Now, here are the Coloursoft. These are a lot thicker. You know what would be smart? Comparison. Okay. So as you can see there, ta-da, very different in size. That was the biggest thing when most people got the Chromaflow. We were looking at these like, what the heck? I mean, it's narrow. It's in fact narrower than a Prismacolor. So that was one that was odd because every pencil created by Derwent up until Chromaflow was the chunky monkey style, as I like to call it. It was a thicker barrel. Yes, it uses more wood, so probably not the best if we're trying to be, you know, eco-friendly. But it has this whole colored barrel, color dipped in, the little swirly. This one's silver. And like I said, you know, England, they vary. But it's got the name and the numbers, and they're overall pretty nice. As you can see, this set has been used quite a bit in comparison to my Chromaflows, which I use not as often. However, I have had these for 5 years, so I've only had to replace 2 colors open stock, so that's always nice, right? All right, let's talk about their color range real quick. Again, only 72 colors, so you do have to keep that in mind. I'll zoom out a little there. That said, their 72 colors are a little bit better balanced because they don't repeat as much. They do have a few that are too close though, like this Prussian blue and indigo. It is pretty close. They could have, you know, swapped that one a bit. Because they only had 72, some of these pinks take a little bit more layering and, you know, finesse to blend together. Same with the greens. You might be sitting there going, eh. And they did have a little bit of too much repeats up here, in my opinion. And then honestly, because this was a 72 count set, I think some of these grays could have gone away and either added more greens, you know, even added some more purples, because their purples don't necessarily all work together. You have some blends here, but really it's kind of it's hard. That said, I have worked with this palette or this set of colors a lot. It just requires you to layer and be more aware of color, you know, color theory, whereas you have 150 colors here to choose from, and these color family charts are super handy too, because then you can just make a blend from those if you're new to coloring, whereas here you have to be a little bit more creative with your color combos. So that's something to keep in mind when we go through the rest of this. Now, that was just the introduction to the pencils. Next up, we are going to do the infamous charts. These are designed specifically for testing everything there is to test. From layering to erasing to smudging to the water test, because yes, believe it or not, some pencils are water soluble and they shouldn't be. And then of course, creating a blend. So I'm going to pick colors that are similar to one another as close as I can. Thankfully, Derwent does like to recycle their colors, and they're usually close enough. I will say with the Chromaflow selection, some of theirs aren't quite the same, but luckily Like I could show you here, like Lincoln green here isn't the same as this Lincoln green. In fact, leaf green is closer to that. So that was kind of a bummer because I have also the Derwent Artist and the Derwent Pro Color, and those ones were a little bit closer. That said, I'll still find colors as close as possible and then use a similar color on our layer test. I usually go with blues or purple, basically something you can see. And then also, when it comes to erasing, I tend to go with a color that would be more staining just to see. So that would either be like a purple or a dark blue, because you want to see how well it lifts off the page and if you could color over it. All right, so, oh my gosh, my desk is a mess. What I'm going to do to save your poor little eyes from having to watch this painfully slow is I'm going to speed up the next part and then we'll come back and discuss it, but I'll show you how I fill this out. Okay, so we've created our sheets here, and now we are going to go through and kind of discuss, or actually, sorry, we have to first do the rest of the test. Silly me, jumping ahead. Okay, first things first is erasing. So I'm going to take away the clipboard. I tried to get similar colors, as you can see, but are we both on frame? Yep, okay. So let's go with erasing. It would help if I had my brush nearby. Oh, there it is. All right. Now this one's a little bit darker of a purple, but you can still see they erased pretty well. And then if I were to take the next lightest color I was doing with my blends and go over it, I can on the Chromaflow, and I can just fine and dandy on the Coloursoft. So that's good to know. Now smudging. Granted, I would not sit here and do this with a coloring page, but I'm going to zoom you in for this part. Granted, I wouldn't sit there and smudge the crap out of it, but we did get some smudging there, which is natural for a soft pencil. And I'm pushing pretty hard here. And then same thing, we got some smudging, but not much. It actually took some extra pressure there. Now let's go for the water test. because this is always an interesting one. So we will test the water on Chromaflow, and thank goodness they are not water soluble. Now we'll test on the Coloursoft. I keep wanting to call them Chromasoft. Nope. There we go. Hey, look at that. Neither are water soluble. Okay, now we're going to zoom out. So let's talk about these sheets. There's a few things to know about these sheets and why I've created them. Like I said, I tried to pick as close to colors as I could. They don't have exactly the same, but it was close enough. So I like to do the layering test. Now, one thing I am adding that's new is the breaking test with pressure. So I'm going to sharpen the purple to a nice point. Now this is the purple that was used on both of these. All right, that was harder than it needed to be. And we are going to see if I press hard, will it break? Yes, it will. So it broke off right there. Alrighty then. Break test. Now on this one, if I were to press hard, it also breaks off. One thing you'll notice, however, is that the lead is thicker on the Coloursoft versus Chromaflow. Now, I'll get into a few things later with that, but if I'm pressing hard now, it's not breaking. I'm pressing really hard. Like, look, so hard you can see the grain of my desk. I'm also getting a lot of dust, but that's expected. Okay. Now we're going to press hard with the same one here. Same thing. It just broke that super pointy tip, but that's it. So they both hold up to heavy pressure after that. You just can't keep a super sharp point, but honestly, if you're a heavy presser, you need a tip about like this. So it's good that they both hold up. Layering wise, however, you can see, hopefully, that the Coloursoft layer up faster. These are softer, in my opinion, than Chromaflow. Chromaflow to me actually feel more like they need more layers than the blendability. And that's where I'm going to show you, because I did the same number of layers when I created my blend and was able to get smoother results with the Coloursoft because they are softer. They smoosh, as we like to say in adult coloring, better. When it comes to layering, they also started layering up faster. So as you can see here, by layer 2, we're already having more coverage. Layer 5 is where you can see there's still tooth between both of them, but you get more coverage with the Coloursoft than the Chromaflow. So there's that. Both of them smudged, both of them erased though, and you could color over them just fine. Neither were water soluble, so that was good. Now this test sheet is basically showing you their layerability. Both are great for layering, but both can also be used for blending and heavy pressure, because layering is a light pressure game. Heavy pressure is different. That said, when it comes to blending, the winner would be Coloursoft, because it only took 2 layers and a lot less tooth, whereas when it came to Chromaflow, I still have plenty of tooth here to try and cover these up. So these would be more layering suitable. That doesn't mean you have to layer them, I'm just saying. But this is only part of it. I've got to show you colored pages. So to make it fair, I decided to color in a Rita Berman book because I've owned them forever and haven't colored in them. All right, so this page here was colored with the Derwent Chromaflow. As you can see, very bright, but naturally the palette I pick will also play a role. But here you can see they blended out really nicely. I did use a blending pencil because this gal does not layer. This gal blends it out. But they worked great with both the Lyra Splendor blender and the Korilynn blender. So yeah, this was all pencil, even the background. I made sure that only pencil was used. Granted, I need to go back in and do some additions with my gold pen to finish the pages, but we just needed the pencil's performance. So let me zoom you in a little more so you can see that. All right, so we have really good blends here, and I did anywhere from 3 to 5 colors in each of these. So everything blended out nice. It's nice and bright, kind of reminds you of Prisma because Prisma is very bright. Now when I did my Coloursoft, because I don't have as many colors to play with, I decided, well, and I wanted it to be pretty and pink and purple, I don't know. I was going for a blue, lavender, purpley vibe. But they blended really nice as well. But on here, I only used my Korilynn blender to seal the color in. Sometimes I'll use the Korilynn blender so that it no longer smudges. It's not a matter of covering the tooth like it was over here. It was just I wanted it to not smudge and rub on this page. That's a little trick you can do if you don't want to spray workable fixative or final fixative. You can just use a blender, like the Korilynn one, because then it gives it a nice sheen too, and it doesn't move the colors around like a Prismacolor blender. So this one, same thing, I used multiple colors, like even in these flowers here, I have like 5 colors in there, and they still blended nice. And it required a lot less effort because over here I had to blend them out to actually blend them. Now, if you're into layering, that's not a problem for you. You'll probably just do 3 or 4 layers and get your page done. I, however, limit myself to 1 to 2 max. That's why I'm a Prisma gal, probably. And yeah, so those are these pages here, but I also like to do portraits because if you've watched my channel, I'm a portrait gal. So, which one do you think belongs to which pencil? All right, I'll tell you. This is the Chromaflow. This is the Coloursoft. I did purposely do brown hair, and even with Prismacolor, I did brown hair to try and keep it nice and even. I will admit, I was incredibly impressed, and this is very painful for me to say, because I'm not a fan of Chromaflow. They were amazing for hair. Absolutely amazing. Look at the hair. I sat there like, huh, well, crap. So I am testing another page with the pencils just for hair because I had this similar thing with Derwent Pro Color. Hated them. Oh my gosh, hated them. Started using them for hair and was like, oh, I love them. I only use Pro Color for hair. So I'm seeing if these Chromaflow are a similar thing because the hair here turned out amazing. Everything was nice and neat and even, but this is also where I could tell you these don't perform like the Coloursoft because this hair here also looks great if you ask me. I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but the hair here turned out really good. But because these are a lot softer and a little bit more similar to Prisma in the opacity and the way they're a little bit softer, you have to layer the hair and flick it in a little differently. Otherwise, you're going to overlap and just basically ruin your hairlines. So it's a different coloring technique. And I do, yes, in the future, plan to do a video showing you how to use softer pencils for hair, including Prisma, because it's a different technique than I use here with pencils that aren't as soft and creamy, and you can flick in some layers. So that said, I honestly love the way the Coloursoft hair came out, but it requires a different technique, and you go through your pencils way faster because they are so soft that I was sharpening a lot. So I went through pencils way faster doing the hair here, whereas I barely had to sharpen over here. Not as much as like Pro Color where I never sharpen, but pretty close. Then for the rest of the portrait, I used like 8 colors in these Stargazer lilies. And I don't even know how many. It's the similar colors from here. I just added a darker one into the butterflies. I have some finishing touches to add, of course, but overall, it was not bad. And then when it came to skin tone, it was a lot easier to create a skin tone with the colors available in the Chromaflow than Coloursoft. Coloursoft's palette was a little limited. I was layering it up. I need to get some more peaches and pinks into her skin because she kind of looks, well, a little ghostly. Her coffee cup has more color. But maybe she's just a gal that doesn't go in the sun. I don't know. So when it comes to skin tone, I'm not a fan of using the Coloursoft line. But again, Coloursoft, like I said, because of how their palette is created, you have to do a lot of layering and be okay literally layering colors to make a new color. Not blending colors, but layering to create the depth and dimension you want. Chromaflow, I didn't have to do that. I was able to just pick colors and create the skin tone. So that's something to keep in mind. All right, we'll get back to our sheets now. Now that we've talked about their performance and all that, let's talk about pricing and comparisons in that front. Okay, it's been a while since I've done one of these. I usually do a review. I can't remember the last time I did a versus. That's not a watercolor pencil. Okay, let's talk about the pros and cons of the Chromaflow. They are affordable, even here in the US. They're affordable in the UK as well. So that's one nice thing. And considering you get 150 pencils, not bad. And I know Derwent purposely made them to be an affordable option because let's face it, Derwent pencils aren't always the cheapest, right? There are more colors than Coloursoft because we're comparing these specifically here. This isn't just an individual review. So they have more colors than the Coloursoft line. There are less breaks than with Coloursoft because Coloursoft do have crumbles sometimes. Whereas from using Chromaflow, I didn't have that problem. So less breaking, and their open stock options are cheaper. Now let's talk about the pros with Coloursoft. In comparison to Chromaflow, these have the traditional quality and style of Derwent pencils that we all know and love, and the reason we buy Derwent. So that's pretty big for me because quality control is important. These do not have the same quality control. I think Derwent was like, let's just throw these in there, which I will get to. These blend and are smoother to work with. They, like I said, are closer to Prismacolor. Now don't mistake that for me saying they are like Prisma, just closer. And then, of course, like I said, the quality control is a lot better. But let's get to the cons. Compared to Chromaflow, the Coloursoft are more expensive, so I'll get into pricing in a minute. These can break and crumble pretty easily. Well, you'll have less breaks with your Chromaflow. These you can blend and layer, but you have to be willing to layer and build up colors because you don't have as much of a color line, which also brings me to the last point, 72 colors, 150 colors. These, however, are thinner. There are quality control issues, quite a few from the 3 separate sets I've bought. I have had off-center barrels, I have had cracked wood, I have had sharpening issues. So the quality control and then just the thin barrel and possibly cheaper wood has led to them not being the same quality you would expect when you buy a Derwent pencil like the Coloursoft. They are not as smooth or as creamy as the Coloursoft, in my opinion. I did get more dust while using the Chromaflow than the Coloursoft. The only reason I would get dust with Coloursoft is if I press very heavily. The colors in the palette for 150 pencils I felt were too overlapping, and it's rather important to point that out because honestly, with so many overlapping colors, it's kind of like, why did you guys make 150 of these? Let's talk price. 150 pencils, 72 pencils, okay? Now you can get these at the Chromaflow in sets of 12, 24, 36, 48, 72, 100, and 150. Yeah, that's a lot. When it comes to Coloursoft, you can get them in sets of 6, 12, 24, 36, 72. They are both available open stock. They are both light fast, but don't expect these to be similar to the Derwent light fast line, which are the highest rated, but they are still light fast tested and meet all of those. Let's talk pricing. Now, I went with pricing here in the US. You, of course, can hop on to your sites elsewhere. I did, however, pull pricing from Jackson's. for open stock, just because I wanted to take a look at that. Now, open stock, since they both are available open stock, which is a big bonus, that means they're an actual artist-grade pencil. Open stock here is, I wrote it here. So at Blick, you can get your Coloursoft for $179, while you get your, whatchamacallit, at Jackson's, $192 for the Coloursoft open stock. Chromaflow, however, much cheaper. Blick is $1.08. That's cheaper than Prisma. And it's $1.16 at Jackson's. Now, when it comes to sets, the pricing of where to buy them cheaper kind of varies. I went between Blick and Amazon for those of us in the US for this sets. And if you are looking to get the largest set of the Coloursoft, the 72 count set, Amazon has it for $123.39. Blick has it for $124.40. So, you know, choose your battle. However, the pricing is exactly the same for the Chromaflow. It's $140.29 at Blick and at Amazon. Depending on the set you get, the price per pencil goes from 93 cents per pencil. Yeah, that's pretty freaking cheap. 93 cents per pencil if you buy the 150 set. Whereas over here, it's $171 per pencil if you buy the 72 count set. If you were to buy the smallest set, the 12 count, it's $159 per pencil is what it comes out to, whereas it comes out to $175 per pencil here. So these are obviously more expensive, but again, quality control, and you can really tell when it comes to the quality of the pencil, and that is why these ones, I guarantee, are costing you more. That said, this is a budget-friendly option in the US and the UK. Now, I know there's been some talk about how these are going to no longer be available in the US. There is Derwent US. You guys need to reach out to Derwent US and chat with them because I have, and these are staying in the US. We're not losing Derwent products. Which is nice because those in the UK can still get their Derwent and we can still get our Derwent. Whereas I know people in the UK can't get Prisma for the same. So keep that in mind. I just wanted to address that rumor because that one's been going around and I spoke to Derwent US specifically on that. Now, here's the thing that pains me. Oh, so much. So who wins, right? Unfortunately, the Chromaflow would win in this competition. I hate Chromaflow. So this is probably the most honest review you'll ever see because I don't like these things at all. And anyone who has watched my channel knows I am an avid no Chromaflow gal. But when it comes to comparison, unfortunately, despite the fact that these bad boys blend beautifully, and despite the fact that there's quality control issues and a thinner pencil, the Chromaflow are the better bang for your buck. You get more pencils, they're cheaper, there are a ton of size options. I mean, for Pete's sake, let's just go talk about that. And then when it came to performance, because of the color ranges, and like I said, where I really noticed a difference was hair. That's where I was like, well, crap. Because this hair looks great, don't get me wrong, but this hair was actually incredibly satisfying to do. And then also, because there is such a nice color range, I was able to create a skin tone easily. I was able to create all these blends. I was able to do all of this here in such a bright, pretty palette, whereas over here it's limited. So if you're okay layering to create colors, then definitely go for Coloursoft. But you have to use them in a different way because they are a softer, crumblier texture at times, and you will have to layer to make your colors, despite the fact that they are a lot easier to blend and smush together than the Chromaflow. If, however, you do not want to sit there and build and create your colors, or you do like it, these work for both. But when it comes to having more colors to play with, unfortunately, here is our winner. And like I said, it pains me to say that because I am not a fan of the Chromaflow pencil, but I will always be honest with you. So if you were to say which one should I buy, the Chromaflow. Yep, so there is my comparison of these pencils. I'd love to know if you have both, what you think, what's your favorite. I always like to know who likes what and why. And yeah, hopefully the next comparison will be out soon. I will be comparing Coloursoft to Prisma and then Chromaflow to Prisma last. And then I'll compare all three. And yes, I know you think I'm biased towards Prisma, but I have gone in with a very open mind. But when it comes down to the sets here, the Chromaflow won. So very open mind, like I said. All right, guys, thanks for hanging out with me for a little fun versus. And until next time, take care. Bye now.